Hi there, Primary 6-7, Primary 7A and Primary 7B. Mr. Taylor here. I hope you've all had a great week. For today's health and wellbeing activity, we're going to be thinking about the consequences of reacting to others in a positive or negative way. The first thing I want you to do is think about a difficult day that you have had. One that just didn't go to plan, or when nothing seemed to go right. Pause the video now and consider what happened, how you reacted, what effect your reactions had on other people, and how you could have reacted more positively. Okay, now that you've done that, we're going to read the story of Dan's difficult day. As you listen to the story, I want you to think about the following 5 questions. Number 1. How did Dan react to the situations in the story? Number 2. Were his reactions affected by the mood he was in? Number 3. How did he react towards other people in the story? His dad, his mum, his sister, and his friend, Zach. Number 4. How could Dan have been more sensitive to their feelings? And finally, number 5. How could or should he have reacted differently? In your homework jotters, I want you to split a page into 5 segments. Take notes for each question as you listen to the story. Feel free to pause or rewind the video at any point to give yourself more time to take notes. You can find the story on Microsoft Teams if you'd like to follow along or read it over again at your own pace. Here's part 1 of Dan's difficult day. Dan woke up with a start and looked at his bedside clock. 8 o'clock. How did that happen? Then Dan realised that he had forgotten to set his alarm. If he didn't get a move on, he'd be late for school and he had an important math test that morning. Dan threw on his clothes and went to open the bathroom door. But it was locked. He could hear his dad inside brushing his teeth. "Hurry up, will you?" shouted Dan. "I'm already late, thanks to you." "What do you mean?" said his dad from inside the bathroom. "You should have woken me up. If I'm late for the bus, it's your fault," yelled Dan angrily. Dan's dad opened the door. "If you speak to people like that, Dan, it's going to get you into a whole lot of trouble." Dan just shrugged his shoulders, mumbled a half-hearted apology, and ran downstairs to get some breakfast. But all he could find was an empty cornflakes packet. "Oh, Tia," he yelled at his little sister, "that's typical. Why didn't you leave some for me?" Dan's mum appeared in the kitchen. "It's nothing to do with Tia," she said. "I finished the cornflakes. If you want some cereal, there's plenty more in the cupboard." "Forget it," said Dan grumpily. "I haven't got time." And he ran out of the house, slamming the door behind him, and down the road. Dan managed to catch the bus to school, but he was already hot and hungry. What a start to the day. Hopefully you've got a few things noted down for that first section. Think about how Dan reacted toward his dad. What about his sister? What do you think started Dan's bad mood? Okay, let's listen to the second part of the story. Part 2. Dan wasn't too worried about the maths test. It was on fractions and he was pretty good at those. But his best mate Zach was feeling really nervous. "I just don't get them," said Zach, "and I hate tests. I don't know why, but they make me feel really stressed out and then I can't concentrate properly." "You need to man up, Zachy boy," said Dan, laughing and ruffling Zach's hair. "I'm gonna ace it." Zach didn't laugh though. "Thanks for listening, mate," he said quietly, and walked off to talk to Ali and Joe. The maths test went quite well, although it was a bit trickier than Dan had expected. After the lesson, it was lunchtime, so he went to find Zach to walk to the school canteen as they usually did. Dan couldn't find him anywhere, so he walked to the dinner hall on his own. When he got there, he noticed Zach was already sitting at the table with Ali, Joe, and some of the others. "Well, that's nice," thought Dan to himself. "I thought he was supposed to be my best friend." Dan ate his lunch alone. What do you think about the way in which Dan reacted to Zach here? How could he have been more sensitive to Zach's feelings? Okay, Now we're going to read the final part of the story. Try and get something noted down for every one of those questions. Part 3. When Dan got home from school, he was fed up, tired, and hungry. His dad was lying in the sofa with an ice pack on his back. "Hello, Dan," he said. "Back's bad again, I'm afraid. Get yourself a snack and then be a love and put the shopping away, will you?" "That's not fair," replied Dan. "I've just got in." He grumpily told his dad that he'd do it later and went upstairs to play his Xbox. After a while, and much longer than he'd planned, he came downstairs to find his mum cooking tea. "Dad said he asked you to put the shopping away," she said. "But I had to do it when I came home from work." "I just forgot," said Dan. "Anyway," he added, changing the subject, "what's for tea?" When his mum told him, Dan moaned that they'd had the same thing last night and complained that they never had anything interesting. He went to get his kit ready for karate club. At least that made him happy. But just then, his dad called him into the lounge. "I can't take you to karate tonight, Dan," he said. "My back's too bad to drive. You'll have to walk, I'm afraid." "It's miles," said Dan. "That's a right pain. Thanks a lot, Dad." Dad looked at him hard. "That's it," he said. "I've just about had enough of your negative attitude. No karate. You can do your homework and then get yourself off to bed early." As Dan trudged upstairs, he thought to himself, "What a lousy day. Where did it all go wrong?" So that was the story of Dan's difficult day. Your task now is to retell the story of Dan's day to make it Dan's delightful day. You can do this as a piece of writing, an audio recording, or a video. If you're feeling creative, you could draw pictures to illustrate your story. I want you to demonstrate in your story how Dan could respond and react to the day's events in a more sensitive and thoughtful manner. How might this result in a more positive outcome for Dan's family, his friend, and for Dan? You can choose to retell one part of the story, 2 parts of the story, or all 3 parts of the story if you feel like it. I look forward to looking at your work. Good luck.